Week 8 DraftKings DFS breakdown. That's what we're here to do. Thanks for being here, guys. You can find this free article over at beatbestball.com. Pretty good week for us last week. We always like to review how did the last week go before we go live. Oh, God. I had my stream open by mistake. I don't know if you guys were hearing that. So last week, I thought the breakdown was pretty good. We get into our spots here. Jaden, he got hurt, is what it is. Gino, he was the quarterback you needed to win. Love had a decent game. Goff had a fine game. More importantly, at running back, Chuba kind of busted his chalk, but Kyron a good game. Bijan a huge game. Alexander Madison, very low ownership, had a good game. JJ and Amon-Ra went 20 plus. Drake and London and Metcalf both went around there as well. Jameson, Addison, and Watson all busted. Bowers continues to smash. Kittle was fine. And then Njoku and Fant were pretty good. Our leverage spots, double tight end. Yep, that was the key to winning. Had to have those Fant Njoku lineups. Stars and Scrubs was pretty good. Don't play Juju. He busted as Mega Chalk. Playing the running backs in Detroit and Minnesota. Both Gibbs and God, why am I blanking on his name? Running back for Vikings. You know what I'm talking about. He did well. Josh Allen, yeah, he scored okay, but not enough. AJ Brown did well, but not enough. So, whatever. Moving on. Let's get to this week. This was the winning team in the $100 Millie Maker. If you guys aren't familiar with that, usually I do the $20 Millie Maker, but I played the $100 Millie Maker last week, so figured I'd show you guys the bigger one. Juju Smith-Schuster, 0% owned, 0 points. I meant at 24% owned. Didn't matter. This guy still won. He had the Geno Njoku Fant combo with Metcalf, Amon-Ra and Gibbs, a low-owned Joe Mixon, a low-owned Commanders D. Always sharp to play a low-owned D where, it's just easy for them to separate if they score defensive touchdowns, which the Commanders did. So sharp lineup here from Need Lunch Money. Congrats to him. I myself had several Geno Njoku Fant lineups, but pieces didn't come together. This is a dog bowl draft, an underdog. Promo code Cheslium to play on Underdog Fantasy, but always like to look at these just to see some market sentiment. Kareem Hunt should be quite popular, going as a borderline first-round pick at 6,300. There's no buys this week, so ownership, if it's gonna condense, I'd rather be different this week for sure. Dolphins should be mega chalk. They're cheap. They're being drafted high. We know that. And then, I think 3 RB builds should be dominant. Implied team totals, top 5 on the slate. Lions at 28.25, Packers at 26.75, Ravens at 26.25, Broncos at 26. This kind of shocked me. I mean, I get it. They're playing the Panthers. Panthers look terrible. Javonte looked fine. Scored really well against the Saints, but I don't know. I just don't really respect the Broncos offense, so I don't really want anything to do with Javonte chalk. And then the Chiefs at 25.5. Lots of high totals on this slate, though. Highest over-unders, Jaguars, Packers, 49.5. Bengals, Eagles, 48. Bills, Seahawks, 46.5. Bucks, Falcons, 46. And Dolphins, Cardinals at 46. I kept the list at top 8, even though there's no buys, just because, if you do too many, you kind of dilute everything. So Josh Allen, 7,800, my top quarterback play on the slate, made the thumbnail. I think he's going to be quite low owned. I don't think people are going to pay up for quarterback as much as they'll pay up at running back. The Bills posted their highest pass rate over expectation of the year last week with Amari Cooper being a Bill. He had 250 passing yards in the second half alone. So first half, couldn't get anything going. 3 and outs. Second half, 250 passing yards and a half. What if the Bills offense is just good from the jump? That's the question to ask yourself. We've seen the Seahawks get destroyed by the 49ers and the Lions. Maybe it's Buffalo's turn. And then I attached this tweet from Chris. Chris, I'm sorry here. I'm gonna say Wetch, something like that. But the green dots are what their pass rate over expectation was this past week. So you can see, and then the logo is where they've been on the year. So on the year, the Seahawks and the Bengals are your leaders in pass rate over expectation. But this past week, the highest members were the Bills. And I don't know what the green dot is just okay. So it was the Bills and the Jets are passing more with Devontae Adams. So, some of this can be small sample stuff, or it could be an indication of things changing. Tua, who is 6,100. I mean, he's just underpriced, right? He's going to be very chalky, but he's underpriced, as are all his stacking partners. Thanks, DraftKings. Cardinals are 27th in points allowed, 26th in yards per game allowed. Jordan Love, he's 7,100. He's averaging 23 points per game, gets a terrible Jaguars D. I don't know why the Jaguars continue to run man defense, but they do. Additionally, Jaguars played 2 games in London. Really not uncommon for teams to struggle after returning from a London game. This could be Doug Peterson's last game as the Jaguars head coach. This could be the game where they get blown out. See you later. Jags D, 6th in rushing yards, but 31st in passing yards, 30th in points allowed. And they're one of the worst defense for his quarterback. So a big time pass funnel here for the Jags. Kirk Cousins, he's 6,200. I mean, Tampa's defense is just terrible. And I'm expecting people are going to want to play Sterling Shepard, Jalen McMillan, Cade Otton, Josh Palmer. But, sometimes when you miss your best 2 wide receivers, you just struggle, which means it could be more possessions for the Falcons. Cousins torched the Bucs for 509 yards and 4 touchdowns in week 5. Tampa's 29th in points allowed and 29th in passing yards allowed. Caleb Williams, who's 6K. I mean, he's just been improving every single week. He just got his bye, which should be really big for them, right? They played in London, so you get the bye, you get a rest. He scored 26 and 29 points his last 2 starts. It was against Panthers and Jaguars, but still. And Washington's probably not going to have Jaden Daniels this week, which means more Bears possessions. I think Washington's defense is better than it was last year, but I still think they're not that good. And when your quarterback's Jaden Daniels and you keep on converting first down after first down, keeps your defense off the field, I think that bad defense can still show up if Marcus Mariota is being the quarterback. Kind of a hot take here. Anthony Richardson, 5,800. He had 14 rushing attempts for 56 yards last week, and that's exactly what we want. We don't want to see you rushing 3-4 times a game, throwing the ball. We want him to throw the ball deep, hit big plays, and run the football. He had 27 points versus Houston in week 1. Jalen Hurts, he's 7,500. He hasn't had really any big games this year. 24 points, his highest game on the year. But Cincinnati struggled to beat the Giants and the Browns, and they've just struggled to tackle at times. So anytime Hurts can get, a bad defense, people are going to want to probably play Saquon every week. We always know he can get the rushing touchdowns as well. And then Joe Burrow, he's 7K. T. Higgins did pop up on the injury report today, so that is something to monitor. But every single week, Burrow double stacks are in play. They are the second highest team in pass rate over expectation, and the Eagles-Bengals game is the second highest over-under on the week. Running back, Breece Hall, who is 7,300. Since Robert Saleh has been fired, Breece has averaged 27.5 fantasy points per game over his last 2 games. He saw targets of 6 and 9, rushing attempts of 12 and 18. The Patriots are coming home from a London game. They're 25th in points allowed, and they were recently called out by just having a lack of effort. So, smash spot. Joe Mixon, he's 7,700. In his 3 healthy games this year, he's averaged 30 fantasy points per game. 30. No Nico Collins. Means Mixon is more involved for the Texans. He destroyed the Colts in week 1. He had 160 rushing yards back then. Kenneth Walker, who's 7,800. Yeah, I thought Tony Pollard was pretty bad chalk against Buffalo. but I don't think the same thing for Kenneth Walker. Unlike Tennessee, I expect the Bills to actually respect the Seahawks passing game. No DK Metcalf changes things, but still. And if the Bills try to shut down the pass, that means that the rushing lanes will be there. We've seen explosive runners kill the Bills this year. Derrick Henry had a long run. Brees Hall had a good week. And in the games where the Seahawks got blown out, he saw targets of 8 and 5. So he should be game script safe. DeAndre Swift, who is 6,200. Just one of the best workloads in the NFL. And he's very cheap. He's had over 20 fantasy points in his last 3 starts. Continues to see goal line carries. Continues to be involved in the passing game. And if the Bears win this one pretty big, they should salt it away with Swift. Devon Achane, who's 6,200. He had the carry lead of 15 over to 10 versus Mostert last week. He averaged 25 points per game before Tua got hurt, and he should return to his explosive self in this very juicy matchup. Kareem Hunt, who's 6,200. He has rushing attempts of 22 and 27 for his past 2 games. He's going to be extremely popular, seeing as he goes as a near first-round pick in dog bowl drafts. I'm a little concerned, though. He's got no receiving work. And the Raiders defense talked trash to Mahomes earlier in the year, or maybe last year. They called him like Kermit the Frog with his voice. Mahomes was asked about this. He says, I'll deal with it when I get there. So I could see this being the week everyone plays Kareem Hunt. They've been seeing him salt away games. It's the Raiders. They're terrible. But maybe Mahomes takes things into his own hands, rushes for first downs, gets some rushing touchdowns, throws all over him just because he can. So yeah, he's going to be chalky, but probably not for me. Rachaad White, who's 5,700. Bucky Irving, he's banged up. And my intuition is that with Chris Godwin out for the year, you're going to see a lot more targets to Rachaad White. I mean, he's a legit good receiving back. He can operate in the middle of the field. And you want the Bucs to get down big and just have it PPR scam day to White. James Conner, he's 6,600. He fumbled twice to start the game on Monday Night Football. Usually teams say, hey, welcome to the bench. Get it together. Not the Cardinals. They're like, hey, we drafted this guy, Trey Benson, in the 3rd round. He's terrible. We hate him. It's James Conner's show. Miami's front 7 is much worse than their secondary. And he's probably going to be leverage off of, people are firing up Tua, Waddle, Tyreek. They're probably not playing James Conner. So playing James Conner should be some leverage there. To be honest, I forgot about Achane when I made my 8, and I just didn't delete it. So we did 9 for running backs. Brian Robinson, 6,400. Bears defense, very legit, but they're much easier to run on than pass on, in my opinion. And if Jaden Daniels misses this game, I think Washington trying to win the game, their plan's going to be run the football with Brian Robinson. He could see like 25 plus carries in this one. Wide receiver. And I decided to go, like last week, I wrote up Chase, Amon. This week, I said, okay, wide receiver, let's do $7,000 and below. So I'm not readying up Jamar Chase. If you can afford him, if you want him, play him. Amari Cooper, he's $6K. He barely played last week, only 19 to 55 snaps, 12 of 35 routes, but he still saw 5 targets, turning them into 66 yards and 1 touchdown. So I don't know what that is, 38.5% target share or something. He barely knew the playbook last week. Keon Coleman had to be like, hey, bro, run this route, run a go route. And I'm willing to forgive him. He was pretty bad to start the year with the Browns, but I guess he was just not trying. And I'm expecting him to be nearly a full snap player now that he played a game with the team and he has a full week of practice with the team. Jalen Waddle, 5,400. I mean, he's just way too cheap. Tyreek also popped up on the injury report, so something to monitor there. This does profile a little bit more of a Waddle game to me. Waddle's typically been a zone killer, so I like Waddle, 5,400. Gonna be mega chalk for a reason. Tyreek Hill, 7K, way too cheap. Monitor the health status. One way to do that is to go on Underdog and check what his prop line is. I haven't checked since he got hurt, but it was roughly 90 receiving yards when I checked earlier in the weeks, which is just an insane prop. Jaden Reed, he's 6,700. I am very confident that at least one Packers receiver is going to torch the Jaguars. The question is who. And Jaden Reed's health is also fair to question. But after having limited practices to start the week, he had a full practice Friday. And if he is fully healthy, I mean, who is in the NFL? He's far too cheap for his talent in this matchup. Lad McConkey, he's 5,100. Lad's health, it's also fair to question. He had a hip injury in the past week, but we've seen a lot of players torch the Saints over the middle of the field. Dallas Goedert got them for like 30. Chris Godwin got them for 40 points. Kind of Lad McConkey's game there. And I mean, the Saints have lost like, I want to say 15 guys on their offense and defense. So he did have the hip injury, but he ran nearly all the routes on Monday Night Football, 42 of 44 routes. Brian Thomas, he's 6,400. I mean, he's just truly electric, right? Like he's going to be much closer to an 8K player versus a 6K player soon. So one of the last weeks to probably play Brian Thomas Jr. at a semi-affordable salary. It's just not going to be surprising to me if the Jaguars trade away Christian Kirk. So that's even more clear. Brian Thomas Jr. is the engine of the Jaguars passing offense. Could see Kirk land with the Bucs. Could see him land with the Chiefs. Although probably not the Chiefs with Hopkins landing there. So yeah, Brian Thomas Jr. locked and loaded, 6,400. DeAndre Hopkins at 4,900. I mean, this takes a big leap of faith to play him. Number one, he got injured in August. He's not been fully healthy. Maybe he is now. That's the hope. We literally saw Juju Smith-Schuster get acquired by the Chiefs and drop almost 30 points. It's risky because we did see Amari Cooper acquired by the Bills roughly the same time of the week, and he only played 15 snaps. But my expectation is if Mahomes does want to send a message, he's going to throw the ball to Hopkins. Hopkins is a veteran around the league, and they're going to get him involved. T. Higgins, he's 6,500. Again, we need to monitor the health here. He did pop up, I believe, with a quad injury on Fridays, which not good. So, I mean, if that's at all looking bad, don't play him. But I mean, look, people didn't play Puka Nacua last night. He was full to go. So, injury news, you just kind of have to gamble on it. If you're going to get a talented guy at like 3% because of injury worries, it's typically a slam spot where, I mean, you're playing top heavy tournaments anyway. So he's averaging 16 points per game, and he's really only had one big game. Like he had one big game against Baltimore, 29 points. So really, really, really strong year for T. Tight end, Cade Otton, who is 3,500. Should be one of the most popular tight ends on the slate. The assumption, he's going to get more targets with Chris Godwin out for the year. Brock Bowers, 6,100. I mean, just lock him in for 8+ targets a week. DK refuses to up his salary. Kansas City is last in tight end points per game allowed. Dalton Kincaid, he's 4,900. Back-to-back 50-yard games, and the hope is Amari Cooper can open up the field for him. Just needs to land in the end zone. Got tackled at the 1-yard line last week. Tucker Kraft, who's 4,600. Ran the most routes on the whole Packers team last week, more than all the wide receivers. He's just been awesome. Sam Laporta, who's 4,800. The assumption here is that Jameson Williams missing the next 2 games means Laporta can see usage more similar to last year. Cole Kmet, who's 4,700. He's got 2 games above 24 points this year, so we know the spikes are available. And he's, after starting the year in some weird timeshare with Gerald Everett, he's back to a full-time player. Grant Calcaterra, he's 3,200. He's the Eagles' lead tight end with Dallas Goedert, continued to be out. The Eagles didn't need to pass against the Giants last week much, but he did run 19 of 23 routes per PFF. And then Kyle Pitts, who's 4,400. Okay, Kyle Pitts, I'm ready to believe again. He has 10+ points over his last 3, including dropping 16 on Tampa in week 5, who he plays this week. Defense, Browns, they're 2,400. I mean, it takes some balls because they're playing the Ravens, but they're the cheapest defense. They're legit good. Lamar will take some sacks too. The Bears, they're 2,700. I mean, just an awesome defense. And if they play Marcus Mariota, should be the chalk defense of the week. Chargers, who are 3,300. They get the Saints, who are extremely banged up. Jets, 3,500. Drake Mays look good, but I mean, the Jets are a far cry from what he's played so far. Broncos, 3,700. Great D. They get Bryce Young. Ravens, 3,400. Jameis Winston and the Browns' bad O-line on the menu for them. Falcons, who are 2,600. With no Godwin, no Evans, people playing all the cheap guys, the Bucks could just struggle. So fire up the Falcons D. Chiefs, who are 3,600, awesome defense. They get Gardner Minshew. Leverage spots and game theory plays. Number 1, don't play a cheap buck in your lineup. Don't play Jalen McMillan. Don't play Shepard. Don't play Cade Otton. Don't play Trey Palmer. Almost a ton of lineups are going to have these guys. So just don't. Hope that the Bucks fail as a team. If you really want to leverage off these guys failing, try to do like a Bijan Robinson and Falcons D lineup, and then just, build from there. Number 2, build a balanced roster. This week, the dominant build should be stars and scrubs, right? People are going to play Jalen McMillan, Shepard, Cade Otton, probably 2 of these guys. They're going to play the cheap running back. So when the field is building that way, we want to build differently. Build a balanced roster. Build like, $6K per position. Pay up at defense. Pay up at tight end. Now you have a build that's incredibly unique. Number 3, play 4 wide receiver lineups. My assumption here is that 3 RB lineups are going to be way more popular. There's a lot of cheap options like Achane, Javonte Williams, DeAndre Swift, Kareem Hunt. There's expensive options people want, Breece Hall. So if you play 4 wide receiver lineups, you should be competing with less of the field. Number 4, game stack a non-chalk spot. There's no buys this week, so if ownership's going to condense to like Tampa, Atlanta, Green Bay, Jacksonville, Arizona, Miami, I'm going to be firing up Buffalo, Seattle, Indianapolis, Houston, Philly, Cincinnati. I'm not positive on the ownership at this point, but yeah, just play whatever you think is going to be lower owned. James Conner. With all the Miami guys underpriced, people are going to play Tua, they're going to play Waddle, they're going to play Tyreek, they're going to play Achane. Just hope the Dolphins fail, and James Conner is a reason for that, right? Like James Conner, he can literally go for like a 15-minute drive, eat up a whole quarter, score a touchdown. He's scoring points. The Dolphins guys are not because he's on the field, so he's strong leverage. Number 6, pay up at defense and tight end. People like to pay down at defense. They like to pay down at tight end. Some will pay up at tight end. They'll pay up at defense. Very rarely do people pay up at both. Additionally, all the pay up defenses, like some weeks they're like so spots, but a lot of the pay up defenses are in smash spots, so sacrifice a little bit at the skill position, just play a different guy who's $1,000 cheaper. And instead of playing like the Bears, you play a team like the Broncos, you play a team like the Chiefs, and you hope that they score defensive touchdowns and help you separate and win $1 million. Number 7, pay up at wide receiver. All else equal, I think people would rather play Breece Hall, Saquon, Ken Walker, Mixon versus playing a guy like Jamar Chase or A.J. Brown. So maybe you play a lineup with both of them. Hope they both get nuclear. Some of the running backs fail. That's a great way to get different. Number 8, Rachaad White. There's guys like DeAndre Swift, Devon Achane, Kareem Hunt, Javonte Williams, all priced near him. All should be more popular than him. And all the Bucks skill players are 4K or below. Cade Otton, Shepard, Trey Palmer, etc. So your hope here is that if White has a huge game, not only is he scoring points, which means that the skill guys of the Bucks are not, and you hope that the other running backs priced near him fail. And then always like to give some cheap plays if you need some salary savers for your lineup. Quarterback, Justin Herbert, Drake May, Bo Nix. Running back, Rachaad White, Alexander Mattison, Chase Brown. Wide receiver, Jalen McMillan, Sterling Shepard. You can also throw in Trey Palmer. And then if no T. Higgins, Andre Yoshibas. And then tight end, Cade Otton, Grant Calcaterra, and Tyler Conklin. Like to keep this short and sweet. I know people don't always want to listen to a 2-hour DFS pod. So appreciate you guys watching. You can check this out at beatbestball.com. Please do sure to like and subscribe. Leave a comment below. We'll get to a couple comments here, maybe 2 or 3, and then we'll get out of here. Is going naked Josh Allen a good option this week? I think you can always go naked Josh Allen. He can score the rushing touchdowns, but almost all his skill players are cheap. They're all 6K or below. So for me, I'd rather play Josh with one of his skill players at least, if not two, right? Thoughts on Baker without his best receivers? Yeah, I wouldn't be going there, but if you're gonna, it's viable. I just think he's more likely to struggle than he is to continue to average 24 fantasy points per game. Some kind words, thank you. Some haters. I mean, yeah, if Josh Allen's my top quarterback play, you would think his top wide receiver would be my top play. That's just kind of logic. Thank you for the comment. Doesn't look like we have many more comments. Kind of did this a little bit later than I usually do it in the day. So have a great day, guys. Good luck this weekend.